So here we are on the Ultimate World Cruise again. It is Friday, June 28th, and we are in the country of Malta. The major city is Valletta, and this is us just pulling into port. There is so much history here in Malta. It's 122 square miles, population is about 550,000. People have been living here since 5900 before Christ, and it has an incredible amount of history, occupied by Phoenicians and Romans and the Knights of St. John, Napoleon, and finally a British protectorate. So we'll kind of go through that as we go through the various things that we're going to show you here in this video. So that's a time lapse of us entering the city. And for many years, starting in 1530, Malta was occupied by the Knights of St. John the Baptist, which not to be confused with the Knights Templar, but they were all fighting for the survival of Christianity. And originally, the Knights of St. John were they were in Jerusalem, and then when Jerusalem was overtaken by the Muslims in the 11th century, they went to Rhodes, and eventually the Ottoman Empire and the Muslims overtook Rhodes, which forced the Knights of St. John to come here to Malta in 1530. You can see down there that building with the black thing in front and a doorway. That was the original location where the knights brought their galleys up this particular part of the port is called Galley Creek. And so they would take their masts off the ships there, and they would store the galleys to the left up in this port during the wintertime. And so then they built this fort up on top of the hill. That date up on top is 1722, so it was eventually finished in 1722. But it has 3 gates. They were really pretty clever about protecting them. Yeah, they were clever about building this castle fort because it had 3 entrances. So the enemy got past the first one, they had to get to the second one, and if they got past the second one, they had to go to the third one. So this is going in the first gate. You're going to see the second gate in a minute. But the interesting part about Malta is it's so strategically important in the Mediterranean. So Gibraltar controls the entrance, but Malta controls everything, the Eastern Caribbean, the Eastern Mediterranean and the territory above Africa. The deep water port here is like 55 feet deep, and it's been used by several navies over the years as a safe port. So the British, there's the second gate, you can see there. The British, it was a British protectorate from 1813 to 1964 when Malta finally gained its independence. And it's been a strategic place for the navies because of the port and because of its location, because it has that deep water port. So there's the third gate that they would have to get through to get into the complex. So this is an example of an auberge, they call them. It's each part of the knights. They came from different countries, some from France, some from Spain, some from Germany, I suppose. Each had a clubhouse. They call it an auberge, and this is a sample of one of those in this fortified city. So there's probably 4 or 5 of them representing the different countries where the knights came from. So at one point, at 1565, there was a siege that lasted for 4 months where the Ottomans tried to kick the Knights of St. John out of Malta, but they were successful in defeating the Ottoman siege, and they held control of the island until they turned it over to Napoleon in 1798. And that's an interesting story too, because Napoleon's army was a Christian army. They could not fight. The Knights of St. John the Baptist couldn't fight another Christian army. And so they just turned the island over to Napoleon in 1798. And then finally in 1813, the British took it over finally, where it remained until 1964 when they were granted independence. And they became, finally in 1974, they became a republic. So as I mentioned, the strategic nature of the location, we're about 50 miles south of Sicily, 176 miles kind of north and east of Tunisia, and 207 miles north of Libya. So we're close to the African continent here, and we're also close to Europe, the southern part of Italy. So anyway, this church right here is the Church of St. Lawrence. We didn't get to go inside. It was closed. So you'll be happy to know there's no interior shots of any churches in today's video. So I will show you the outside of the big church that's dedicated to the Knights of St. John the Baptist. So also of interest is the major city, Valletta, is named after the Grand Master of the Knights of St. John, Jean Perisal de la Valletta. That's where the city got its name. He was the guy that was commanding the knights during the siege. So here we're up on top again. This is a view of the Grand Port. Looking across the way, there's another fortification over there, and also a hospital that was used. And they were strategic in the way they placed the hospital. So when ships came in with people that had diseases, they could just go to the hospital. They had a way to lift them straight up out of the ships up into the hospital to treat them so they wouldn't spread any disease in the city. So this is looking back towards Serenade. Serenade's the second ship you can see behind it. The yellow funnel is a Costa ship, and the one behind that is Serenade. So you get an idea of the grand size of this port and the strategic nature of it. You could bring the whole of the fleet in here for safe keeping. And that breakwater you see out there in the middle of the screen was added by the British during their tenure so that they could keep the largest storms come from the north here. And this is the Parliament building here. The heads of state of the country of Malta occupy this building. And he mentioned to us that this island nation is totally dependent on imports. The only thing they produce enough of on their own are onions and tomatoes. Everything else has to be imported. Even the water has to be made by reverse osmosis plants because they have no source of water. So what we're coming up on here is the huge church in there. It's actually the temple of the Knights of St. John the Baptist. And it cost 16. Yeah, so the entrance fee to get into that temple/church cathedral was 16 euros a piece. So based on the time we had available and what it cost to go in, we decided to leave that for the next time around. But we're going to walk around it down the main street of Valletta, and you'll see the place where we had lunch, and we also saw the entrance. The actual entrance to this temple of the Knights of St. John was on the side. But one more thing about the strategic importance of Malta is that the Suez Canal was finished in 1869, was completed. And so from 1869 until 1964, when the British let Malta be independent, really the British controlled the entire Mediterranean because they had Gibraltar and they controlled Malta. And if you came through the Suez Canal from the trade routes in the east, you passed by Malta on your way to Gibraltar. So they really had a monopoly on the trade in the Mediterranean. It was a pretty strategic thing. This is the entrance you see here. There's a long line to get in that Cathedral of St. John the Baptist there. Another reason we didn't go. So we had lunch at the place just to our right here, right there where we're looking. We stopped and got something to drink, and across the street you can see the gelato place where Laurie went and tried out their gelato. It wasn't quite as good as it's been elsewhere. And I want to leave you this final view of Malta, which is its beautiful fountain, and let you know that our next stop is in Syracuse, Sicily tomorrow. So stay tuned for another video from Italy, Sicily.